Arc Raiders has a ton of different types of loot with not a lot of stash space, which is one of the pain points for a lot of players. So I'm going to go over everything that you should be keeping, things that you can just get rid of right away, what we're going to be utilizing in our workshops, our expedition projects, as well as how to min-max your stash space to get the most out of it, and free up slots where you need to without getting rid of anything, as well as a whole bunch more. What's up, World Utopia here, back with another video. Today checking out all things Arc Raiders. Okay, so first up here, I just want to go through the basics. We're going to cover the basic stuff. Then we're going to get into each section from the workshops, then expedition projects. Then we'll even cover how to min-max our storage space. And then last up, cover the enemies that I think you should be farming for and keeping onto. So first up here, one of the things about the storage space is the max storage size. You might be wondering what that is. Well, it is 280. You cannot get anything more than 280 storage slots right now. There is no way to expand it. There is no additional perk points there. Nothing you could do to get past 280. You are limited to that one. And just going over some of the cost stuff, the last one is 200,000. So I believe it is around 260 or 256. Then you go to 280 because it's 24 slots there. You do eventually can expand that for 200,000. I believe the one before that is 130,000 coin. And what do I mean by that? It is the currency in the top right here, which is used, again, as it says, to buy gears from traders, earned by selling loot. But it's also used to expand your storage slot. There is a button right here that does say expand. That is how you do increase your storage space. Now, another cool thing here, looking through your storage stuff and just looking through kind of things that you're going to utilize. Obviously, you have your tab categories here, which I think are great. But on top of that, when we do hover over an item, it'll actually tell you what it's used to make and craft. So it'll say here, used to craft advanced weapons like the Tempest, Equalizer, Volcano, Jupiter, and the Hull Cracker. So it does kind of give you some utilization here, telling you what to craft. That isn't all the time, though. It's not going to tell you things that are used in quests, and it's not going to tell you things that are used in your workshops. So it won't always tell you on items. Sometimes it will just tell you that it can be recycled to materials, but you might actually need it later on. There is also, of course, turn-ins to kind of upgrade and level up. If you didn't know here, you can level up your workshops here in the top right or top left, but the right section here, you'll see that we will need certain things to level up. Now, you will need to keep all of those resources. Right now, you see I have one of 3 rusted shut medical kits. I cannot currently turn that one in. So unfortunately, you can't just add to it. The one thing you can add to, though, is your expedition projects. In here, I earlier did have a humidifier. I was able to commit 1 from my stash. So I put 1 into my expedition project here, where now I do have 1 of 5, and that is no longer taking up stash space there. So it's very nice. If you kind of want to like push off things, I would do so into your expedition projects. In the first tier, a lot of it is like metal and rubber parts. If you kind of needed that stash space, I would do that right away, because once you get to tier 2, you can do a lot of your green ingredients and put those in there. And then eventually you see here, like, you need advanced electrical components, the magnetic accelerators, 3 of 3, and even Leaper Pulse units. Although I would save the Leaper Pulse ones for your workstation and workshop. The point is here, you can add 1 to those into this, or 2 or 3 until you get to that 5 mark there. So now that we have the basics down, kind of how we can commit resources, where we can commit resources, where we have to hang on to them, and how our storage space does work, we could see here our first stuff is actually kind of upgrading things. Now you do see I have a level 5 Master Hoarder, so I have the max level that I can get Scrappy. You cannot train him anymore. On raids, he usually brings back between 8 to 15 of each of these. He usually does those in tandem with each other or at the same rate, so it's very nice there. You also see I have nearly all level 3 workstations except my medical lab, which is actually one of the hardest ones to upgrade. So some of the things that I want to go over here, first off with Scrappy. I think a lot of people want to upgrade Scrappy, they want to get into T5, but they require that you have fruit. So they require you having fruit here, also cat beds and a few other things that I'll go over, but they require that you do have fruit. And people find this to be a very, very hard pain point, which I do get, because it doesn't make it very easy for a lot of these. One of the things to note here, and one of like the beginner insider tips here to kind of look for fruit if you wanted to, is the inspect button. I feel like a lot of people don't know about this, but when you're looking at a map, if you want to just see the map, you can click inspect and it will show you the whole map before you load into a lobby. So you don't have to load into the game. You could see the map right here from this screen, where as you see we're still in lobby, lobby screen. So you could just hit the inspect button and we'll show you the entire map. Now the one thing a lot of people do for the fruits and stuff like that you need for Scrappy is they do head to these nature icons. So you might be wondering, is there a better way? Yes, there is a much better way to not only get mushrooms, but literally everything else. So any other fruit that you need, as you see, I literally have 10 of everything right here. And how did I get all these? How do I have these stocked up? Well, there is a very easier way to do this. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's actually waiting for the Lush Blooms category. Unfortunately, I don't have an image of it here, but you'll see like this one does say uncovered caches. When a map does showcase that it has Lush Blooms, you might be thinking, well, then I can go and get more of it in the nature slots. No, that's actually not how you do it, or at least not how I would recommend to do it. What you can do here is actually head to a place called Metaforge. Now, this might be a little bit intimidating, but it does show the map and all the spawn locations. So what I would actually recommend doing is coming up here and hitting the Hide All button. Now, again, you might be thinking we're going for fruit locations. No, actually, it's on the side here, and it is labeled here under baskets. Now, these baskets, which are really cool here, you can actually click and it will show you kind of some imagery here. Now, not all of them, but a lot of players have been posting images of the baskets. These will have a ton of fruit in them, and they are randomized, so they're not always going to be there, but they have a ton. They'll have like 6 or 7 lemons, then the apricots, mushrooms, all in one basket. So you don't actually have to go and farm out each section there. You could just farm these baskets when it is on that map for the Lush Blooms. So when you do see Lush Blooms on a specific map, I would then go to Metaforge and look up where the basket locations are, and then you can get a ton of fruit out of them. Go to each of the locations, as they usually are RNG, and you can get a ton of these. As you see, I have 10 mushrooms. In fact, in one run, I believe I got 13 mushrooms, and I only visited like 3 or 4 baskets on Damn Battlegrounds, and that's essentially how I got him to level 5 master very fast. Next up here are your workstations. As you kind of already saw with Medical Lab, we really want to keep things like Rusted Shut Medical Kit. In fact, I've only ever found one of these. And Antiseptic we can actually craft, which is kind of nice. So if you have a higher level refinery, we can actually craft it here. You see that we do require that Great Melon here to actually craft this, but just some chemical supplies. And we can actually make these, so we can make all 8 if we needed to, into our Medical Lab there to level it up. That's also things like explosives, so you'll need things like rusted gears, power cables, industrial batteries. Correct bioscanner is for the medical bay. As I mentioned earlier, the Rusted Shut Medical Kit, laboratory reagents, fried motherboards, toasters, motors for a lot of these. So you should be really looking out for that stuff and holding on to it, especially rusted gears. That's also a pain point for a lot of players. It took me forever to find rusted gears, so you should be looking for those and kind of holding on to those. Do not scrap them. Do not recycle them. Hold on to those because you will need those. Next up here is stuff to help you with your stash space, because now that you have all these things, you might be like, I'm running out of stash space. I need to be able to kind of optimize. Well, there are a few ways to do so. The first one here is actually a button called Merge Stacks. So sometimes things won't be stacked properly. They'll be stacked kind of like this and taking up 2 slots where they can actually be merged together. Now, normally when you kind of place them in from your inventory, they do a fairly good job of that to kind of stack those properly. But what you can do is click Merge Stacks, and those will place those together, and so that way you can kind of get an extra storage slot or 2. That's not the only way, though. That's just the kind of simplistic way. If you do have a very nice refinery, which I would recommend upgrading this one first, you can actually make things that will take up less slots. So, for example here, one of the things that I actually kind of keep way too much of is my Arc Alloy. As you see here, I have a ton of Arc Alloy, probably way too much that I don't really need, and it's very easy to get this. You get this on basically every single mob, so I definitely don't need all of these. I can get rid of some. Well, I wouldn't recommend selling. You only get 3k, and I wouldn't recommend kind of recycling, as you only get 30 metal scraps if you really need to, but they're very easy to get in raid. What I would recommend doing is coming to your refinery, and if we see here Arc Circuitry, we can actually craft in our refinery, and it takes 6 Arc Alloy. The cool thing here is we can actually stack these to 5. And as you see, if we stack these to 5, we are now using 2 slots of our Arc Alloy. So we go ahead and craft these. We now just went down from 267 to 266. So we did gain an extra slot by just refining one item. Now there's a ton of stuff that you can do that for. You can do that with advanced electrical components, the medical components, or the regular ones, this durable cloth, crude explosives, mod components. All of these will break down your resources to a much smaller amount, and you'll be able to utilize less stacks there. So for example, I love to have explosive compounds. We can kind of knock down some of our crude explosives here and our oil. So if we go back to our storage space here, we knock down another slot here, and we can even have merge stacks. You see our merge stacked worked. Now we just gained 2 slots just from crafting those. So a ton of utilization here with your refinery. You should be constantly refining if you can. You don't want to overdo it with certain things, but a lot of things will break down here. You can even look what they do break down into, or what their stack count is. As for example, as I said earlier, the arc circuitry does make 5, which requires 30 of these, so we can break down 2 full stacks just for 1 stack of the arc circuitry. And you will need these, as you can see here. We need to make these for power rods and medium shields. Well, power rods actually do make the heavy shield, so they're used to craft heavy shield and snap hooks. So you will be utilizing a ton of arc circuitry here. You also do have arc circuitry. You use those to repair your medium shields and even repair your heavy shields. So again, ton of utilization there with your gearing stuff. You see we use the power rods, and even to repair these, see here, if we want to repair our medium shield, we do use arc circuitry and batteries. So very nice utilization there. That's kind of how we can knock down some of our storage space even further, kind of get a ton of other slots later on, and be breaking down our T1, T2 resources into T3, etc. resources. So you should be constantly doing that. Again, you don't want to overdo it too much, as you still will utilize some of the earlier resources, so you do want to keep a decent amount of those, but that is something that you break down to. One thing to note here, I kind of want to point out, I think people don't know, is some of these advanced arc power cells. I see a lot of people don't really pick these up. They leave them on some of the bodies. These are very, very useful, especially when you get to medium and heavy shields. You might be wondering, I don't need those. I could just use my arc power cells, or even craft our shield rechargers. Well, it actually does take 4 shield rechargers to heal up a heavy shield, and 2 for a medium. So what a lot of people do instead is they actually craft shield or surge shield rechargers, which these take 1 to fully heal a medium shield, or 2 to fully heal a heavy shield. So you see, you do need the advanced arc power cells and the electrical components. So those are 2 things I would keep count on and kind of utilize. Now, last up here, just tips overall, I do kind of want to mention at least one that I've noticed is a really big pain point for people, and a lot of people don't even understand what enemy this is. Those are the Sentinel cores. Sentinel cores actually don't drop from turrets, which you might be thinking, or you might be wondering, what even is a Sentinel core? Well, it is actually a big turret that can kind of snipe you. If you've ever seen the ones that have the yellow lasers, those are Sentinels, and those of course drop Sentinel cores. They are actually a really big pain to farm because they don't always spawn, and you probably sometimes don't even know what they are because not everybody's tagging them since they don't move around. I found it, in my opinion, easiest to farm them on Dam Battlegrounds, as they have 3 spawn locations. So one here is in the research admin area. It's actually at the top right corner. You'll see it kind of just sits there right by the staircase. That one does spawn there. There's also 2 on Floodgate. So there's 1 right here in this corner, and then 1 right here that can spawn in this corner. So there's 3 potential spawns that can happen along this pathing. So if I spawn at the top, usually I come through Floodgates and head to research admin. Or if I spawn over here, I'll head to research admin and then go through Floodgates to try to get those. That seems like a major pain point for people. Those are really hard to farm, at least because of the RNG. A lot of times they're either already taken down, or sometimes they don't even spawn at all. So that, unfortunately, you have to kind of do those in tandem with looting. But that is one of the things that I would farm for, is these Sentinel cores, or at least hang on to those. Make sure you're keeping those in your storage space. One last note here with those: when destroying them, at least in the research admin section, I would go underneath it, or at least below it, as you'll see from some footage here. If you destroy it from the side, it can go flying in way crazy directions. In fact, I found it all the way down here in this little pit area from when I destroyed it, all the way over here. So this thing flew so far. The only way I was able to find it was I had to shadow play and then watch the footage back of where the explosive flew to. And then I headed to that specific location, and that's where I did find the piece that I needed. So just be wary on that. No, it probably didn't disappear. The part probably just went flying off into a direction, so do be wary on that. It usually doesn't happen on Floodgate though, so you can just destroy them from the side. Floodgate, you can just destroy them, run up to them, but on research admin, for whatever reason, it does go flying. That should about cover for today's video. I hope that I helped your storage space and what to keep. If you enjoyed, a like, subscribe, and until the next one. Deuces.